Welcome back everyone, my name is TS Page and this is part 2 of the ST set tier list video. If you didn't see part 1, go ahead and check that out. Link is in the description, as well as there's a info card in the top right of your screen that will lead you right to it. If you haven't seen that one, go over there, check it out, come back here, and then check this one out. Or you can already look at what I've placed where, and then just roll with the second half. Either way works. And with that being said though, if I were to change one thing from the feedback, I would change the King's Necromancer set to be a A tier, medium low A tier instead of bottom of B. I think it should at least be a high B tier after looking at it again, but everything else I'm comfortable with. I think it should stay there. So with that said, let's get right on into the next set. Next up, we have the Rajan Disciple Ninja Set. This one is just pure, what you'd expect out of a DPS set. The only kicker to that is the ability itself does give armor to yourself, covering for the set's only real weakness. Since the ninja normally has speedy, the chakram taking that away feels kind of unnatural to not just zoom around on a ninja. But with that said, you do get granted an insane amount of DPS. The chakram does somewhere in the ballpark of an average of like 1100 damage, which is ridiculous. The katana, in comparison, the katana when paired with the tene, which is an extremely good DPS armor, is just absolutely ridiculous. And yeah, the only drawback with the set itself is the low DPS, but since the chakram kind of covers for that, the set itself is not too bad overall for just, doing damage and actually staying relatively survivable in most circumstances. The reason it's not an S tier though is because you don't get that ninja star speedy, which I can't really knock it for, but it just feels off when playing on it. And then the set itself is just similar to the Geb problem, but on a much, much, much lesser degree. The shots are sometimes hard to hit with the katana, and the range varies depending on how many times you use your special ability. So it's interesting, but there's just some small, minute things that hold it back from being an S tier, but is a very, very, very viable set. So once again, we introduce an F tier set. This is the Horrific Sorcerer Set, and horrific is the best thing to describe it. The ability stuns you, the wand is bad, the armor is mediocre, and the ring is just what you'd expect out of an ST ring. I may be selling it short, but I've used all the pieces individually, and I've used the full set very briefly, and I just find it super unenjoyable to play, and I don't know why you would use this over any other sorcerer, not set tier, but any other sorcerer loadout equip ever, and I just don't enjoy playing on it whatsoever. I don't like it. So the Oryx Battle Attire set is up next, and this one's a very solid set. I'm not going to spend very long on it. The small difference between it and a regular knight set, the sword has less range, but is very solid for damage when being paired with the full set, getting the set bonuses, and the armor, Mercy's Bane, which is the best DPS armor in the game. And to counter that low defense provided by the Mercy's Bane, you get plus 15 defense as a set bonus. The ring also provides defense and HP, pairing and complementing extremely well with the set as a whole, making it a very, very viable set overall. Nothing's really wrong with it, but it doesn't stand out, so it's an A tier. So next up we have the Golem set from the Lost Halls, and this one's kind of interesting because I'm going to leave it at C, because C is short for situational. Yeah, not really. But it's an extremely situational set. I would not want to use it the majority of the time, because the main thing you want with the Trickster is usually the teleporting or a super fancy ability that it can have with it. And the Brain of the Golem, being one of the best prisms in the game, has its own caveats because it is by far the most situational item that the Trickster can use, because it's literally just a decoy that can daze like 7 seconds later. So yes, it's good. The dagger though isn't great, the cuffs aren't great, The set bonuses kind of make up for the lacking in the actual damage of it, but at the same time, the ability is nothing, it doesn't really change much about the Trickster itself. It still relies on the decoys, but you just don't get access to the teleporting and the rushing nature of the Trickster, hurting the core of the class and making it just it's a situational set. It can be good in certain situations, but overall is not great. So next up we have the Phylactery Mystic Set. This one's kind of slept on in the sense that it's not really bad, but there's nothing that really puts it over the edge. You give yourself Speedy and Berserk, which is, a trade-off. It's interesting. It's affected by Wizmod, and the set is very, very Wizmod friendly, except for the Solus gives nothing of the sorts, but the ring kind of compensates for the lack of the robe giving wisdom. So the set itself benefits from Wizmod, but since it's a set, you can't really put on Wizmod equips. So the Orb, Speedy, Berserk for 3 seconds, which is pretty solid, as well as doing the typical stasis, but that stasis costs a lot of mana. And when I look at this set in B tier, it just looks out of place, because it is. The staff is also a shorter range than the typical staff that you'd use for any of these characters, and, that hurts the magmatic mystic as well, and it's a better set than the magmatic mystic, but not by much. It's more viable. I would rather use it, but it's kind of slept on because it's not god awful, but it's definitely not a great set. And this class, or set I should say, will have a pretty predictable fate because of it being an assassin, and the set essentially making the assassin be just a really good assassin. This set just embodies the assassin and says, you know what, screw it. We're going to be the epitome of the assassin, and we're going to do it right. So basically, the set invests heavily into mana and just being a good, stand back, huck and chuck your poisons, and that's the idea of the set. The Ripper is a very good dagger, so if you have the opportunity to do damage, it's a very good dagger to do damage with. The plus 20 attack provided by the set itself is an extremely nice bonus as well, and it's just a very solid set for Assassin. It's not great. Assassin's pretty bad in the current meta of the game, but this set makes Assassin pretty viable in my opinion. And yeah, just feel free to roast me in the comments for posting this as a B tier. After deliberating for a while, the Swole Paladin set to me seems like it's nothing but a low B tier, and for the reason that simply it's just a Swole Paladin. That's literally all it is. The ability takes a little bit away from, speed, which Paladin doesn't really special in speed or anything whenever you use the ability, and the set itself just gives ridiculous amounts of survivability, as the name would befit upon it. It also has a very, very nice damage boost, making the Pixie a pretty viable option with the set. And you've got that 4.5 tile range, so if you can get close, you can hit 3-4 of your shots. You're going to be doing a lot of damage because it's a Pixie Sword. And if you need that extra range of, not being a melee, then you've got the Pixie Sword. So it's a really nice meet in the middle set. The ability still does damaging as a party buff, and it's a solid set. Yeah, not much else to say. So next up we have the Twilight Archmage Wizard set, or whatever it's called, and this one is another simple case of the weapon holds it back. The weapon is really actually kind of a big downside of the weapon. It's similar to the Wand of Geb and how hard it is to hit, with converging shots that make it pretty decent on stationary bosses, and similar to Kolo Sword and how you have to actually aim to hit your shots. But with that being said, at the longer range, it becomes harder to do so, and it's just not very intuitive to play on. The full set itself, the bonuses, the stats, everything's fine. The spell in the set is actually one of the best individual ST items, not going along with set bonuses or anything in the game. But with that said, the staff just extremely holds it back. If I get the staff, I just immediately feed it, not even worried about using the full set because it's just not good. The ring as well, also not stellar, but that's, going in account with the full stat boosts as you put on more pieces of the set, make it, it's a D tier. You can argue with me on this one, but I don't think there's going to be a whole lot of pushback considering this one being a tier below these sets. Now, as you can tell, I've left out 3 of the most popular sets in the current meta, and that is somewhat on purpose and also somewhat just how I downloaded the files onto my computer. So now we're going to get some interesting high tier placements. Next up is the Kunai Ninja Set. The Kunai Ninja Set is easily an S tier for me. I've personally gotten to play with this one on a ninja up to 4K base from practically 0. And it's just been a pleasure to play with. The 1200, yes, you heard me, 1200 base HP on this set is ridiculous. You get pally buffed and you're at over 1300 HP. It is absolutely mind-boggling how much health this class has. The drawback, it doesn't have a whole lot of def to go along with it, but I think you've noticed a theme in this game. Low def means high something else. Aha, low def, high DPS. Now, warriors, knights, they're kind of the exception to that rule, but when it comes to sets, just sets, alright? Bug off, warrior, we get it, you're broken. When it comes to sets though, the high damage output, directly correlates to lower def typically. And with this, you get a extremely high damage output. The katana itself, if you land all 3 shots, is one of the highest damaging in the game without set bonuses, but once you add set bonuses in, this ninja has a base 90 attack when the ability is being used. That is absolutely ridiculous. That should not be in the game. It's broken, it's busted, but you are actually shredding through enemies at a obscene rate. And yeah, when you're shredding through enemies at an obscene rate, it's gonna be a good ass set. So next up, we've got the Akuma Slayer Samurai Set. I recently just made a video on this one, as most of you guys probably know watching this video, and if not, you can check that out. Top right corner, there's an info card. You should go look at it. It was a good video. Nice. Anyways, this set just basically embodies everything the samurai already is, but makes it better in literally every way. You increase the damage by giving it a better katana. You increase the exposability of it, I guess. How easy it is to expose enemies by making the shot pattern of the wakizashi extremely broken. And then you add a good armor, just a good solid armor. And, then you add just, an ST ring that, completes the set, and it's a great set overall. And last but not least, the Phantom Archer set. I would explain this, but if I get the full set, I'm going to make a video review on it, and I'll go over why it's there. But everyone knows right now this is the best set in the game. So, yeah. So there's the end of part 2. Thanks for watching. Tell me why I'm wrong in the comments below, and I will have a cordial conversation, but don't yell at me because while this is what I believe to be the most viable list, at the end of the day, it's what I believe, not completely backed and, scientifically tested or anything like that. So thanks for watching anyways. I enjoyed making this video. Hopefully you enjoyed watching it. This was pretty fun to make, and I will see you in the next video. Peace.